My name is Candice Schoemans, and I'm Deputy Country CEO in the Belgian branch of Quintet called Puilaetco. And my role within the organization is the coordination of the operations, marketing, and IT teams. Quintet strives to keep the sustainability aspect throughout its core business. So there are 3 axes on which Quintet works. The first is to develop a sustainable investment universe. There's also an aspect that's more logistical about making sure that the way our corporation works is sustainable in its everyday use. The other approach that Quintet has is to engage its employees into having sustainable actions throughout their lives, and that we use a specific app to gamify the whole process. A richer life for me is making sense of all the little and big moments in life and making sure that you share them with people that you love.
So I'm Trewin Restorick. I'm the CEO of an environmental charity called Hubbub. So I set up Hubbub about 7 years ago. The aim of it was to try and encourage people to take environmental action in their daily lives. We partner with big companies. We measure everything we do using great behaviour change techniques. And then we give away the results so that others can copy the best bits and learn from our many mistakes. So a richer life to me is really what I've tried to achieve in my working career, which is to create a world where people can have fantastically fulfilling lives without damaging the environment and creating damage for future generations.
So hi, thank you Trewin for joining us today. We're very excited that you can give us some tips, some practical tips from a personal and a professional level on how to be more aware about our plastic consumption.
And it's such an important issue, isn't it? I think there's the equivalent of 1 garbage truck of plastic lands in our oceans every minute. That's sort of 8 million pieces of plastic a day. So anything we can do to reduce it is highly important. One of the things we've done at Hubbub is we've taken 8,000 of those plastic bottles, turned it into plastic wood. Then we gave it to the Queen's boat builder in the UK, who turned it into a boat. And now we take children and businesses plastic fishing. So it's a boat made out of 99% recycled plastic. Businesses and children go into Docklands in London, literally fish out plastics, and then we collect the plastics and make another boat. But the idea behind that is you can see the impact of plastics in the environment, but also it shows that if you do recycle it, you can make it into fabulous things like the boat that they're fishing on.
You were telling me earlier, there's what we see in plastics and what we don't see in plastics. So I think we're all very aware of the one-time use plastic containers and things like that, but it's actually the invisible plastic that's the most nuisance for the environment.
They're called microfibers or microplastics. And actually, these are the worst things for the environment because they're tiny, so they're easy for fish to digest. They can get into the air. So it's the hidden plastics that are really important and bad for the environment. So the 2 most common sources of those plastics are, one is your clothing. So when you put that clothing into a washing machine, they sort of rub together and they create these tiny little fibers which go through the filters of the washing machine, through the sewage system and then out into our rivers. So, and the other big source of microplastics is actually car tires. So when you're driving along, if you've seen the Grand Prix, the Formula One racing, you will see those little bits of tire rubber. Well, you imagine that for every single car. So when you start to think about reducing plastics, it's not just the obvious stuff, but it's sort of how it's sort of pervaded so many aspects of our lives.
That's amazing, because I'd heard about microplastics in detergents, but I hadn't imagined that it could come from other sources like clothing.
I do think, though, you have to, we can have this war on plastic, can't we? It's like, all plastic is bad. But I think we should really be thinking about a war on carbon more than a war on plastic, because sometimes plastic can be a good thing, So sometimes plastic's there to help food last longer, for example.
Well, I was brought up by a father who worked in plastics, and so I've always been brought up with the message that plastique is chic. But what I've learned in the years of discussions with my father was more of a Plastic done right is actually not that bad. You just need to find that balance that you were talking about finding the amount to use, the way that it's recycled, the way that it's produced, and do that in an environmentally friendly way, or at least in a conscious way. What kind of other approaches can corporates or organizations have regarding to plastic on a larger level or larger scale than on a personal level?
So I believe that your bank has made brave steps to reducing plastics, which I think is absolutely fantastic. But I think, businesses now realize that they have to go a lot further. So a proactive, enlightened company will be one step ahead of that and be thinking about what can they do, where should their investments be made, that lead us to a more sustainable way of interacting with our environment.
I think it's great that companies like Quintet use that leverage to be able to raise awareness within their employees, within their clients. What are the top 3 things that one should be aware of or conscious about?
I think it's like cutting out the unnecessary plastic, which is in our lives all the time. So, for example, a lot more people are buying clothing online at the moment, but just think about the impact of that on plastics, because all of that has to be wrapped, it has to be sent to you, you then have to put it in a package back again. So, all of that leads to increased plastic use, but also increased air pollution because it's got to be transported to you. And then being aware of the stuff that is the hidden plastics, particularly around clothing. And just sort of looking at more natural fibres and caring for clothes.
Are baby steps and everyday steps from the everyday public useful as well as the corporate and government approaches?
So I think we're at the stage now, given where we are in terms of certainly the climate, which is you can't pick and choose one or the other. You've got to do everything. You need businesses to be innovative and proactive and do the things that they do. And then you need all consumers to buy into it and to understand that their everyday actions can have a huge impact. Because if you just drop a crisp packet in a forest, that crisp packet is going to be there for another 25, 30 years. So your one throwaway action, will leave something indelibly in the environment for many, many years. And so we've got to realize that even those smallest steps do have an impact.
Okay, so global effort, everyone at their level, and that way we get to make a real difference. Are there any other projects that Hubbub is currently busy on?
We're always super busy at the moment. But yeah, we're looking at sort of the recycling of flexible plastics, we think is really important. And we're working with big businesses to help them change as well. And it's fantastic to hear what you're doing. And I'd like to wish you every luck in the steps that you've got ahead of you.
Thank you. Well, I think Quintet has been very concerned and focused on that subject, and I hope we'll have a real impact and a positive impact.
Great. Well, it was really lovely talking to you. And
thank you so much for your time, Trewin, and I hope our paths meet again.
Thank you.